We recently had a huge drop of information from the Bazaar team in their Q&A. They even answered one of my questions directly. I think from this we have a good idea as to the Bazaar's plan for the future, as well as it answering a bunch of key questions that the community had burning in the back of their minds. So let's dig in deep and see what was really said. First things first, they answered my question, so I feel like I should probably take a look at it. I was basically asking them how they're going to stop the game from going stale, to put it in as simpler terms as possible. To answer this, Reynad went into a couple of key examples. Auto battlers, for example, they all pull from a single similar pool, whereas in the Bazaar we have to learn up to 6 different pools of characters, cards, items in this case, that will all vary the experience as we go through and learn each class. It'll be like trying to learn TFT 6 times, at least at the very beginning. Because of this single pool that auto battlers have, metas tend to establish very quickly, and on top of that, the reroll option almost lets you guarantee getting whatever you want. We don't have a reroll, and that's kind of lived in the back of my mind for a little while, but it wasn't until this update that sort of eureka moment really happened. We don't have a reroll button. In Auto Battlers, which is, I'm going to say the word Auto Battler a lot today, so I apologise, but that is sort of how the matchmaking system is based around, or what the matchmaking system is based around. They have a reroll option to allow you to force a build, to allow you to achieve exactly the build that you want, and that effectively ends up enabling hard-locked metas. We don't have that in the Bazaar. We don't have a reroll button. What we have instead are merchants, but you're not always guaranteed to see that particular merchant or event that you will need. And even then, if you do see the right merchant or event, they might not necessarily sell you the right item. So you're going to have to be going through a lot more layers to get to the item you want. Now, I want to go into all of these things further, and as you'll see as we go through the rest of this Q&A, there is a lot to cover from what Reynad and the team shared, so I'm going to be breaking it down into a couple of extra videos where we dive deep into some of these subjects and really get a taste for what's being shown here. But for today, I just wanted to quickly go over most of what we see. So, swiftly moving on, they are also going to be building for live ops. This is going to be a living product, and this is realistically what I was asking. This was really the heart of my question. I wasn't necessarily talking about the meta becoming stale, I meant the content. I wanted there to be something in the game that was fresh and new, semi-regularly, to encourage people to keep coming back to the game, to keep logging in every day and to keep playing. And we're going to be getting those sort of things. We're going to be getting not just expansions, although we will get those. We're going to be getting new content quite often. We're going to get reworks of broken or unused things, seasonal or special events. They can even change the pool of encounters that we have. This is absolutely huge for making the game easy to play over and over again. And, you know, I can't wait to go and buy some snowy items from Santa when it comes around to Christmas. For the future, this means post-release, expect their team to remain busy. They're not just going to lay back on their laurels and wait until the next expansion. I don't imagine we're going to be getting any seasonal or special events soon, but we'll be seeing content. And with the release date, which we'll talk about later, there's going to be some potential for seasonal events coming up pretty shortly after, so maybe we'll see something there. But I imagine around the launch, maybe we'll see something different, like cosmetics, or battle passes, or maybe early item shifts to keep us on our toes. We'll see something. Now, moving on throughout the Q&A, they started talking more about drafting and third-party tools and all of this. I feel like drafting and how a meta will work out has been covered considerably. Do go check out our pivoting video with all the information about how the meta in the Bazaar will kind of work. But I did want to bring it up here as it was quite a contested point during the Q&A. With drafts being based on synergy picks, all card values should change based on what you currently have, which was kind of the idea as to why a third-party tool wouldn't necessarily work. In traditional drafting games, you can better evaluate cards in a vacuum, but even then the bot would struggle to beat a decent player, and that's going to be exacerbated in the Bazaar. And this isn't necessarily just because of a single thing. The team are balancing and building around it. There's no specific system to combat the meta going stale or becoming solvable. It's just the general philosophy. I do feel like that's something the wider community may have missed as well. I saw a lot of comments saying how Reynad wasn't giving any examples as to how they're fixing things, but they've had these things in mind from the very start. That would be like me asking you for specific examples and stories of when you've taken a breath. You do it often, but there is unlikely a time that is noteworthy. Honestly, go back and watch old updates. I went back through my own video collection to find a good video to recommend about this sort of anti-meta balance philosophy, but it's just scattered everywhere throughout it. Everything they do touches on this idea. Moving back into shiny new things, we have the new upgrade system. Hallelujah. They are currently in a sprint where they've removed the old level system and replaced it with a 3-tier rarity system. Instead of the upgrading levels, we have that, and an Affix system as well. This is exactly what we were hoping for in our Where is the Bazaar video last time. This is what the devs have been doing and been keeping quiet about. They've been pushing to get these newly developed changes ready for us in a new build. We'll cover that later. The rarity system is one thing we'll do a deep dive on, but for now the basics that we know are that there are common, uncommon and rare cards that cost 1, 2 and 3 gold respectively. There are a lot of awesome implications that come along with this, but generally I'm really happy it's possibly solidifying the card diversity we'll see throughout the game, with all cards having an early, mid and late game option. To further increase that card diversity, and in result keep the meta and content from going stale basically ever, we have the Affix system. Most likely this will be replacing the level upgrade system, and now Forger at the end of the day, possibly, will add something to an item, rather than just make its flat stats stronger. So she'll add some burning damage, or you can now freeze opponents with this item, or it'll trigger more quickly or something. Just be aware that when we see this in the demo, it won't have a sort of cool card art for each affix. That's definitely something they want to be bringing, but that's going to be there for release. Just give the demo/vertical slices a bit of slack for polish. You have to realize that these are like alpha versions of the game, like pre-alpha versions of the game. They're just there to show off cool mechanics. One other thing that we did learn was that it certainly sounds like we'll be getting some premium cards. And because of that, they are looking to try to never remove cards from the game, in a certain way. Instead, if there is a card that no longer fits the Bazaar, they will rework it rather than remove it. The item may completely change in what it does, but the assets will stay the same, and as will the things that you may have spent money or time unlocking. We got a little bit of information about future expansions too. I was personally under the impression that new expansions would do little to revitalise old classes. Maybe some new hero powers or item reworks to keep things fresh, but I actually thought old classes would fall out of favour when new ones were released. And I was entirely wrong. They're intending to release cards to the old classes as the game goes on, giving players who main something a reason to keep engaging with the game, and to log in every day. His words, not mine. I'd also like to hope that it means we get some sort of login or quest system that rewards us with these sort of premium cards or other cosmetics just for logging in and playing each day, as Reynad kind of alluded to, but that remains to be seen or confirmed. It just loosely sounds like something we'd be getting based on his phrasing. Sadly, all we did learn about the esports of the Bazaar is that Raynoodle is confident about it, and I guess rightly so. Reynad's roots are in esports, as are Tempo's. The entire company that developed the Bazaar is very versed in the esports world, so we're going to have a bit of faith. Unfortunately, we may have to wait until after the launch itself to even learn more about it though, which I hope isn't too late. One thing that saved Artifact's launch from being a complete and utter disaster, or rather just delayed it from being a complete and utter disaster, were a couple of esports tournaments. So I hope even if we don't get the official Bazaar esports announced at launch, there is some sort of launch tournament. And if there isn't, heck, I'll do it. So subscribe to make sure you don't miss out on whatever I manage to put together as some sort of launch celebration. One thing I would like to say before I get into the juicy stuff of the release date is that for future Q&As, I beg of the community. And honestly, I know most of the people watching this are not the problem, but please stop asking why the Bazaar doesn't have X mechanic or Y feel from traditional card games. They've already thought about it. This isn't a traditional card game. It is a unique and new strategy experience, and if you can't see it for that yet, all I can recommend is that you try it, because it's gonna be free. And if you still want to ask why Reynad won't just make this a Battlegrounds experience,
I disagree with every ounce of it, and I think it's nonsensical.
I hope that sums it up. finally, we're on to more information about the release date for the Bazaar. Although it isn't all great news, I'm sorry to disappoint. Reynad did answer a question, asking if the release was to be soon or soon, in quotation marks. It is sadly the latter. He confirmed the release will be this year, but didn't go on to say they are aiming for any particular quarter. It isn't all doom and gloom though. This is most definitely caused by the scope creep of these new systems. They're still trying to figure out how a social mode, be it 1v1 lobby or whatever, will actually work, on top of having designed and began implementing the Rarity and Affix systems. The game's release is pushed back to the later part of this year because it will be a better game. That being said, my money is currently on a Q4 release. Ideally early Q4, but we'll see. The last game I followed closely released mid Q4 and it flopped, but I don't think I can blame the release time for Artifact's failure. One reason that Artifact did just absolutely fail though, was due to the death of hype around the game before the public could even get their hands on it. An extended beta period for Artifact led to it practically dying on Twitch and YouTube before the game was fully out. To this day, my most watched Artifact content is from before the official release, with all the release week content dipping down. Personally, I'd like to see a small beta window for backers and pre-orders. Honestly, a single week would be perfect for me, with media passes for other streamers, etc. somewhere in the midst of that. But any longer and you start to risk the hype dying down before the rest of the community can get their hands on it. For that to work though, they'd need a more extensive closed beta behind an NDA to work out bugs ahead of launch. There's so much work just to consider that I doubt I will be getting my perfect storm of a release path plus this closed QA NDA thing. But don't be too surprised if we get a shorter beta or early access period in late Q3 or early Q4, with the official release a week or two after that. All of these changes and more are coming soon to the Bazaar, and we don't even have to wait that long before seeing them either. A new build this month. Reynad slipped this into one of his answers. The new build with a Rarity system and Affix system, along with a lot of the other changes I mentioned, should be coming this month. Now, that could mean a literal calendar month, so May ends like really soon. So it could be really soon, which I'm kind of doubtful for, but hopeful. Or it could be a month in terms of time passed, about 30 days from now. Either way, we won't have to wait too long to see a lot of these awesome changes in action. I do want to give a big thank you actually to Reynad, the team, and especially Jubin, who took the time to gather our questions, and I assume suggested that the community were hungry for some answers. So thank you to everyone who makes these videos possible. I know it takes a lot of time away from the designers, but we really do appreciate it as a community. With all that news and more coming, do not forget to like and subscribe, as this will be an easy one-stop shop for all of your Bazaar update information. Either digested down into a smaller bite-sized package if you don't want to watch the larger thing, or if you're really hungry for those extra few bits of information that you may have missed when watching the update yourself. I've been Gamesplay Greg, and I'll catch you in the next video. Ciao!